Give me 1 second here. Share sound. There we go.
Due to COVID-19, this meeting will be conducted as a Zoom meeting pursuant to the provisions of Assembly Bill 361, which suspends certain requirements of the Brown Act. This meeting is being live streamed on the CCTA website. The chair will call upon members, staff, and other speakers by name. Please speak clearly and state your name before giving comments or remarks. Persons participating via Zoom with their cameras enabled are reminded that their activities are visible to viewers. Members participating by Zoom wishing to speak should physically raise their hand and unmute their mic when called upon. Members should mute their mics when done speaking. Citizens participating by Zoom wishing to speak should use the Raise Hand feature or dial *9 if participating via phone, and the chair or staff will call upon them at the appropriate time. Citizens will have 3 minutes to speak. After 3 minutes, staff will lower their hand and mute their mic. Participants via phone will be called upon by the last 4 digits of their phone number. It is requested that public speakers state their names and organization, but providing such information is voluntary. Written public comments received in accordance with the teleconferencing special notice for public comment guidelines are printed on the meeting agenda. If authors of the written correspondence would like to speak, they should raise their hand and the chair will call upon them at the appropriate time. All written correspondence received after that and during the meeting will be entered into the record. A roll call vote will be taken for all action items. Thank you for participating in a meeting of the Contra Costa Transportation Authority.
All right, thank you for that video. So next we'll go to a roll call. So Jackie, if you can conduct the roll call, please.
Yes, Member Bonner. Member Filson.
Here.
Thank you. Member Karimi. Member Keeshan.
Here.
Member Olson.
Present.
Member Pinkham.
Here.
Member Riley.
Here.
Member Riker.
Here.
Member Simmons.
Here.
Member Weeks. Member Weeks.
I was muted. Present. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Vice Chair Dugan. Chair Sarmiento.
Here.
Thank you. We have all members present except for members Bana, Member Karimi, and Member Dugan absent.
All right, thank you for that, Jackie. The next item on the agenda is public comment. This opportunity for members of the public to comment on any items not on the agenda. Jackie, have we received any public comment?
We have not received any written public comment.
All right, thank you. Is there anyone in the meeting wishing to speak during public comment on an item not on the agenda? Okay, Committee Member Olson.
Yeah, speaking as a member of the public, not as a member of this committee, I'd like to announce that Costco has applied to the city of Brentwood to build a 540,000 square foot superstore right next to the Home Depot on the Brentwood, Antioch, Oakley border up in the northwest corner of Brentwood. And members of the Delta Peddlers Bicycle Club are planning to ask for mitigations.
All right, thank you for that comment, Committee Member Olson. Any other comments from any attendees? Just please raise your hand. All right, seeing no hands up, we'll move on to the next item, item 3, which is the consent calendar, which includes a summary of actions from the August 2022 meeting. Are there any changes or comments from the committee? All right, don't see any hands up. Are there any comments from members of the public? If so, just raise your hand. All right, don't see anyone's hands up or speaking up. So can I get, if no comment, I'd like to get a motion for this item.
I'd like to motion to approve the summary of actions from the August 22nd meeting.
All right, thank you. Have a motion
Second.
by committee member Weeks and a second by committee Vice Chair Dugan.
Sorry, I'm late.
No worries. Thanks for joining. Jackie, if you can just conduct the roll call vote, please.
All right, Member Bana. Alternate Member Filson. Member Filson.
I abstain.
Member Karimi. Member Keeshan. Member Keeshan. I think you're muted. Are you there, Member Keeshan?
May come back to him.
Okay. Member Olson.
Yes.
Member
Bill
Pinkham?
Patience here.
Okay, thank you.
I'm here
Thank you, Member Pinkham.
still.
Member Riley.
Yes.
Member Riker.
Yes.
Member Simmons.
Yes.
Member Weeks.
Yes.
Thank you. Vice Chair Dugan.
Yes.
Chair Sarmiento.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Motion passes unanimously with members Bana and Karimi absent and alternate member Filson abstaining.
All right. Thank you, Jackie. All right. Next, we'll move on to regular agenda items. Item 4A is an informational item to discuss the update on the action plan development process. This item is going to be presented by Colin Clark and Placework staff. So I'll turn it over to Colin.
Thank you, Chair Sarmiento. So I think within the last meeting or two, the members of CBPAC had requested an update on the action plan process leading into the CTP update, so the Countywide Transportation Plan update, and with a special focus on active transportation. And so we have David Early from Placeworks, in addition to Tarina Wilson and Raul from Placeworks as well. So thanks, David.
Great. Thank you, Colin. It's great to be here today. I want to acknowledge first that Tarina is our project manager and does a lot of the work on this. Raul Tovar is here as well, and Charlie Knox is here, who's also a principal and helping to manage the process. And it's great to have such a good turnout. I am aware that many of the committee members and others are folks who have been to presentations about the action plans in the past. As Colin mentioned, I'm going to focus today on active transportation components, but it's also going to be information about the action plans and CTP update overall, and it may be a bit of repetition for some of you. I apologize for that, but hopefully those of you who haven't seen this before will find it beneficial, and hopefully all of you will find it beneficial to talk about the bike components. I am going to share my screen, which always takes a minute. Here we go. Hopefully you can now see something that says Countywide Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee meeting. Yes, can I see a nodded head? Yes, I see that. Excellent. And so what I'm going to do is talk today about what are action plans and the Countywide Transportation Plan. I'm going to talk about some of the existing active transportation and safe routes to school initiatives that are in these documents today. I think many of you are familiar with a lot of them. And I'm going to talk about what components we're putting into the new action plans as well. So what is an action plan? I think you know that there are 5 subregions within CCTA. There is one RTPC that covers 2 of the subregions, and that is SWAT, covering both the Tri-Valley area and La Morinda. And in the Tri-Valley area, the TVTC, the Tri-Valley Transportation Committee, works with Eastern Alameda County as well, which you see on this map. So then we have those 2 areas in SWAT, and we have West County, Central County, and East County, each with their own RTPC as well. Each of those has an adopted action plan. The last ones were adopted in September of 2017. They are documents that articulate the objectives, performance measures, and actions with, unfortunately, in the past, a primary focus on roadways, but they have in the past looked some at transit lines and active transportation facilities, and we're moving towards doing that more and more in this new round of action plans. These documents are required under Measure J and the CCTA Growth Management Program. They put on requirements for any plans or projects that are above a certain size or that would amend a general plan to disclose those impacts on regional routes to other communities. They're documents that are intended to ensure that neighboring jurisdictions work together when planning for growth and protecting communities downstream from transportation impacts. So this is what the action plan has been in the past, will continue to be in the future, but with a bigger emphasis on both other modes other than roadways, meaning particularly transit and active transportation, and also looking at non-modal issues like safety and climate change, and I'll talk about those a little bit later. The action plans will be rolled up into the Countywide Transportation Plan, which is called the CTP. It was first adopted in 1995. There were updates in 2009 and 2017, and we'll be working on an update to the CTP once the action plans are done, and we're actually getting started on it right now. Most of the work will happen in 2023. This is the document that provides overall direction for achieving and maintaining the transportation system within the county. In this particular case, which hasn't so much happened before, we're going to be trying to sort of roll up, if you will, the 5 action plans into the CTP so that the action plans really are meaningful building blocks for creating the CTP itself. That is the document that establishes the vision, goals, and strategies for the entire countywide transportation system, and it directs transportation funding through actually 4 different funding scenarios that generally exist within the CTP, and those are both a constrained and unconstrained budget for both a 10 and 20-year period. And we anticipate recreating those when we do the CTP update and hopefully finish it by the end of 2023. So there are existing measures about active transportation in action plans. I do want to acknowledge that the action plans were not previously required to designate routes of regional significance, nor what were called the things called multimodal transportation service objectives in regard to active transportation. So there wasn't a requirement for those things. Many of the action plans did only a little bit on it, some did nothing, but there have been goals, routes of regional significance, and multimodal transportation service objectives related to active transportation in some of the action plans. So some of the examples of that are a goal to increase the use of active transportation, which I believe exists in all 5 action plans today, completing and expanding regional bikeways and trails, implementing complete streets enhancements, encouraging TOD to promote, that does promote walking and biking, actions to complete and update bike and pedestrian plans, to participate in the Safe Routes to School countywide program, including needs assessment, funding, and promotion, and requiring bicycle and pedestrian improvements for development projects. So these and other items have already been in the action plans, and they will continue to be in the action plans, and there will be even more on active transportation in the new action plans. The CTP does also already look at active transportation. It has 5 separate actions in it that are very specific about active transportation, and you see them listed here, requiring complete streets, requiring walkways and trails, emphasizing alternative modes, which do include by name bicycling and walking, expanding bicycle facilities, and supporting safe routes to schools. So those items are already in the CTP. They will certainly continue to be in the CTP as well, and you will see additional items coming into the CTP. I think you're all aware that since the creation of the last set of action plans and the last CTP, you did also adopt the Countywide Bicycle and Transportation Plan in 2018 that built on the bike ped portion of the CTP, and it includes an extensive existing conditions assessment, vision, goals, policy, strategies, a map of both existing and proposed bike and pedestrian facilities, and particularly it includes a map of what's called the low stress bike network, which the county's CCTA seeks to complete in all portions of the county. It has programs within it, and it has implementation guidelines in it. So the CBPP is a very comprehensive document looking at bike and pedestrian planning. And I bring this up because we will be using a lot of the things that are in the CBPP to support the action plans and the countywide transportation plan. I had mentioned already the CBPP does have a low stress bike network. It calls out 4 levels of stress, which honestly I have not seen before. I'm more familiar with 3, where what you all call LTS 1 and 2 are merged together. But in this case, you have a somewhat more sophisticated assessment with 4 levels of stress. LTS 1 being that children are safe riding on these streets. LTS 2 being that those folks who are called interested but concerned would feel safe riding on these streets. That's often LTS 1 in other places, but it's great that you have this one about children feeling safe also. Then you have LTS 3, which are those that are acceptable to enthused and confident riders, but those who still prefer having their own dedicated space. So these folks are better, more consistent bicyclists than those who are interested but concerned. But also they are not the most robust bicyclists. Those folks are comfortable even on high stress facilities, which are called LTS 4, which are ones that have high speed limits, multiple travel lanes, and a limited or non-existent bikeway. So your goal is to create a network under this nomenclature of facilities that are exclusively LTS 1 and LTS 2. This is already in the adopted CBPP, and we're trying to really emphasize it and give more teeth to it through the action plans. So this is your map from the existing action plan, and when I get to it a little further, I'll talk about how we're helping to support that in the action plans. One last slide on existing conditions. There are, of course, 3 providers of safe routes to school programs in Contra Costa County, County Health Services, the Diablo region, and then the San Ramon Valley. And there is an OBAG 3 grant application to expand coverage of safe routes to school programs. So that's some on the previous set of things. Let me talk now about new initiatives that are going into the active transportation plans, into the action plans. We have tried to sort of standardize the action plans. So although the goals and all the components are up to the individual regions, we've provided language that many of the regions have accepted. So pretty much in all the action plans now, we have the following goals that you can see listed here: prioritizing active transportation and transit, increasing the mode share of active transportation, completing the regional trail system and the whole low stress bike network, establishing establishing this contiguous bike network, supporting transit-oriented development and priority development areas, which tend to be areas where people can better walk and bike, and providing mobility for all ages and abilities. So these initiatives and goals appear in most of the action plans. We are setting a series of new objectives. They used to be called multimodal transportation service objectives, or MTSOs. They are now called regional transportation objectives, or RTOs. They are beyond modal. In many cases, we're looking at things like safety and equity, as you see on this screen. So they're no longer have the word modal in them, and not all of them have to do with service or transportation service. So we've eliminated that word also, but they are still the same set of objectives. We've kept some of the ones from the current action plans, We've tried to standardize them across the action plans, and we've added quite a few, particularly that have to do with active transportation. And you see those listed here on this slide. For active transportation itself, we have an objective to increase mode share for active transportation. We have an objective to complete the low stress bike network, and we have an objective to remove unprotected crossings where the low stress bike network crosses a heavily trafficked street. We're trying to get the number of those down to 0. We also have safety RTOs for active transportation, trying to reduce the number of active transportation collisions overall, and also trying to reduce the number of active transportation collisions near schools, near meaning within 500 feet of a school. So we're going to be tracking both of those numbers. And then we have 2 more that have to do with the active transportation in EPCs. There are, within the 5 planning areas, there are equity planning communities only in West Central and East County. So these 2 goals or objectives will appear only in those 2 plans, but they are to complete the low stress bike network within the EPCs and make sure that the percent complete in the EPCs is equal to or greater than the percentage in the county overall. And similarly, to try and reduce active transportation collisions in EPCs and to get that number, to make sure that number is no greater as a percentage of population than it is in this county overall. So those are RTOs that all have to do with active transportation. This is mapping we've done to for all 5 sub areas. This is an example from West County where you can see that we've taken the low stress bike network that shows in the CBPP, and we have reanalyzed it to divide it into 5 separate groupings. Those facilities that already exist, which are shown in green, 2 different ones in purple, darker purple, meaning a low stress facility is already proposed. The lighter purple has a project proposed on a desired low stress facility, but where the project would not necessarily result yet in a truly low stress bikeway. So we have projects that are already defined, and we've divided those into those 2 categories. We're also showing those where a project is under study but has not yet been designed, and we have those in orange where it's on the map, but there's been no work to date on that facility. We've been able to map all of this. We've been able to count it up in linear miles in each of the sub areas, and both in the sub area as a whole and within EPCs as well. We have also, in every part of the county, in all 5 sub areas, we have mapped the crossings of the low stress bike network over major thoroughfares with heavy amounts of traffic. We have identified those in locations which are already fully protected. They're shown here in blue, primarily along the Ohlone Greenway in West County. We show those that are semi-protected already, which means that they have some sort of traffic signal or other crossing, but not a true grade separation or a signal with traffic calming devices. And then we have those that are unprotected. And our goal, as I already said, is to get all of those to blue. All of those that are semi-protected or unprotected would have a project completed to make them into protected crossings. And then we are, as I said, we're mapping collisions. This is a map of where collisions involving bikes and peds have occurred. The red dots are killed or seriously injured. And there are places on this map, unfortunately, where there's both a red dot and a blue dot, which means that this was a KSI collision that included a bike or a pedestrian. If it's only blue, it was a less severe bike or pedestrian accident. So we have those all mapped and counted, and a goal to actually, as in the Vision Zero program, to try to get those to 0 with intermediate goals over the next several years. I'm just going to wrap up mentioning that the action plans will also include a whole number of additional actions to support the bike and pedestrian network and active transportation in general. You see some of those listed here. They are being customized for the 5 subregions, but mostly you'll see them like this in all 5 action plans to support adoption and updating of local bike and pedestrian plans, specific facility improvements, improving access and safety at key intersections, closing the gaps in the low stress bike network, completing and funding complete streets, safe routes to school, an educational program for bike awareness, continuing to subsidize the purchase of bikes and electric bikes, and developing a methodology to begin to track pavement condition on active transportation facilities. You're probably all aware that pavement condition is already tracked pretty extensively on roads, but not so much along the edges of roads where bicycles ride, nor on dedicated facilities. And so we have an action to try and move that forward and have better information about pavement condition on bicycle facilities. That's the end of my presentation. I hope it provided the appropriate level of overview, not too much detail, but also enough detail to let you know what we're doing. And we're here today to hear any comments that you have and to encourage you to review these action plans as they appear over the next couple of months, to give comments on those, and to also be involved in the Countywide Transportation Planning Project, which will be beginning in earnest around the first of the year. And that's it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, David, and thanks for unsharing the screen, your screen here. 1 second here. All right. Does anybody have any questions or comments, or any committee members have any questions or comments for David, the rest of the PlaceWorks team, or Colin? All right, committee member Pinkham.
Yes, the protected bikeways, of course, is one of the major concerns of bicyclists. I'm happy to say that we have a number of new ones in Richmond. They're just delightful to ride in what were formerly dangerous areas. Do you have any feel for what percentage of the program of funds that we're looking at for protected bikeways? Any idea, and any idea how much money we're going to have for the next year or two?
Well, I will try and answer that a little, and then hopefully either Colin or Matt or John Huang would want to jump in with things. But what I can tell you is that the action plans are actually not the funding documents. The action plans are, if you will, financially unconstrained. They're listing projects that the subregion hopes to complete, and it'll be at the time of the CTP that we have those 4 new expenditure plans. I don't know the exact numbers right now. There are in the existing CTP, there are already those 4 expenditure plans, 10-year, 20-year, constrained, unconstrained. So there's one of each of those 4 combinations. And I don't know if Matt or others know either the percentage dedicated to bikes in those today, or how that might change moving forward. But I think mostly it's an unknown because we're not started on the CTP yet.
Are you, in addition, is the committee going to try and combine funds? Ollie and I and some others are on the county bicycle advisory committee, where we look at TDA funds, but of course there's TDA and there's state programs and so on. Is someone actively trying to combine those funds in some way, or just anything like that happening?
I'll just pop in and reinforce what David just said. This isn't a funding document or a funding plan. That goes on elsewhere. Measure J is pretty much spoken for in terms of capital projects. So we'll be looking, outside of Measure J to fund any improvements. And most of these projects that build out the LTS system are local projects. They're not big CCTA projects. They're projects in individual communities that would be either funded by them or by other sources, or by CCTA if there is a new funding stream. So yeah, the action plans really just kind of are used to set priorities locally.
Okay.
But we hope that by placing the LTS in the action plans, that it does become a local priority. That's kind of the goal.
We need to give as much influence from our committee as we possibly can to the very good action plan, actually.
Thank you, Matt. And just want to add that the expenditure plan for Measure J, last approved by the voters in 2004, Program 12, Transportation for Livable Communities. That grant program is 5% of sales tax revenue expenditures annually. And program 13, which is pedestrian, bicycle, and trail facilities, which includes maintenance, that's 1.5% annually.
Yeah, and in terms of the split between protected bikeways, I don't know that we have that number handy. But the LTS is definitely not, the focus is on class 4 and, separating bikes from traffic where possible.
All right, next, Vice Chair Dugan.
Hi, David. Thanks for the presentation. It was the right amount, I think.
Oh, good.
And I just wanted to say a comment that on your last slide there, the pavement condition index, we use a pavement condition index called Street Saver on the trails, the low stress network. And we found that it is not always the best tool. So I think from our perspective, we're really interested in how we could do that better. As you know, a significant proportion of the Measure J funding goes to the Park District for maintenance of 80 miles of trail. So so just keep that in mind. That we've found that it is lacking in many ways. So any help is really appreciated. Thanks.
And Sean, I don't know if we need to talk about it in more detail, but I'll just say I know that either Tarina or one of our other staff did talk to either you or someone else at East Bay Parks. We are aware that you have tried to do this, and we're aware that it didn't work so well so far. And we were hopeful to actually be able to know the condition and set a goal about it, set an objective, and we realized that there just isn't good data. You guys at East Bay Parks are further ahead, I think, than anyone else. And yet, as you said, it hasn't proved to be exactly the right tool. So we're excited that once the action plans are in place, it may be an initiative that maybe East Bay Parks and CCTA can work on together to try and with some cities, obviously, to try and figure out the best way to track that.
Thanks.
All right, next, committee member Keeshan.
Yeah, so actually, this is great that I'm coming up right after that last comment, because I love the fact that maintenance is being planned for, because I think that sometimes we focus on the building and creation of these different trails to the exclusion of maybe the maintenance. And what I'm wondering is, has anybody done a study and is there a way that we can really get aggressive? I guess there's these goat head thorns that are up and down the Iron Horse Trail. Have we made progress to try to eradicate that? Because those tend to pop the tires of bicyclists, and it's just kind of the bane of a lot of people's existence, especially since younger kids, they kind of go on the grassy areas. They tend to get their tires popped, and I was just wondering if we're doing anything about that.
I'm not quite sure what the question is. Are you asking, will the action plans include anything to try and keep kids from riding off trails?
No, I'm saying, can we look for ways to eradicate the weed, the goat head thorn weed that tends to produce these spiky.
Okay, so and they're actually growing in the paved trails.
Yes, growing around on the Iron Horse Trail.
Okay. That's probably a level of detail that we wouldn't get into within the action plan, but I'll ask Tarina and Raul to make a note, and maybe we can incorporate it into a broader discussion of needing to, I think what a broader way of talking about it, if it's acceptable, would be to mention not only pavement condition, which is obviously the road bed, but also the conditions along the edges of the trail that need to be properly maintained as well.
And then one other thing that I've mentioned before, but I think it's worth noting, is is are we making provisions to make sure that, you know, debris and the like are being removed from these trails?
Okay, I think that's a great third dimension. So we have the roadbed itself, we have the sides, the vegetation along the trail, and we have debris possibly in the trail.
Yeah.
And David, if we're going to add that statement, we might as well include on-street facilities, clearing debris on street.
Yeah, yes. Yeah, I think all of those pertain to on-street facilities also. I mean, I certainly know places where I bicycle that it's narrow enough on the street that I care about the vegetation on the side of the road, and the side of the road can feel kind of dangerous because of the amount of vegetation. So I think all three pieces apply. And I want to also underscore, since Matt brought it up, we're very aware that unfortunately pavement condition on a street in the roadway part of the street, which is what's already being monitored, might be pretty good, while the condition at the curb where the gutter meets the pavement, the gutter itself, or the pavement right next to the gutter, all of those things can make a very different condition for the cyclist than the PCI might show for the road. So that's another issue that needs to be addressed.
Yeah, but especially now, right? We're entering autumn where debris is a concern all over the place.
Yeah.
All right. Next, I see committee member Olson.
Yeah, a good report, David. Enough detail, but you got the major points listed, and this is good. I request that you add one more major point, and that is to connect the trails via safe on-street routes, such as the Delta de Anza Trail to the Big Break Trail along Neroli Road, or the McCollum Aqueduct Trail to the Delta de Anza Trail along Country Hills Road, or the Iron Horse Trail to the Canal Trail through the Interstate 680 Highway 4 interchange. We don't have to have every street that passes between the trails be bicycle friendly for an 8-year-old or an 80-year-old, but every once in a while, it would be good to have a connection between the trail so that somebody could make a loop out of the ride or connect from one trail to another.
Great. Kim, if I could just mention in response to that, and Bruce or Ole, I think you've already done some of this for us, but I think the way we're addressing that comment is that we are trying to catalog the most important gaps within the network that need to be closed. And we're trying to do that in each of the 5 subregions. So those places you mentioned, getting from one trail to another or getting safely onto a street where there might already be a facility, we really want to focus on closing those gaps. And we would welcome those of you. I mean, Ole, I don't know about all the others in this meeting, but you're certainly one of the people I know who's essentially riding on every bikeway within the county with some frequency. I feel like you really know what's on the ground. And if you want to give us a list in writing of those gaps you just talked about, we'll go back and talk to each of the subregions and see how they feel about calling those gaps out in particular. But gap closure is a very important piece of this.
Thank you. I'll do that.
Yeah, thank you. And that's true for any of the rest of you. You may not have as deep a knowledge of Ole as all over the county, but if you know of a certain gap that's a high priority in your community or your subregion, pop us an email and we'll look at that and including that on the sort of priority list.
All right, any other questions or comments from committee members? All right, committee member Weeks.
Hi, David. Thanks for giving me a little time. I just had a quick question. I keep thinking about the low stress network and what that means and what's the source of the stress. And it seems like the source of the stress is often cars. So is there any kind of discussion in here, maybe some aspirational principles about pushing for better legal protections and enforcement of passing rules and, reporting of accidents, for example. I know that any time I've been involved in any kind of bicycle accident, the officers often try to stop a police report from being put in unless there's an injury. So I'm just curious if there's a section that talks about the legal piece of creating a low stress network. Do we have anything like that? Even just a couple paragraphs about the legal environment that cyclists navigate each day?
I will say, and Matt or Charlie, Torina, add in here, but I believe the short answer is no, we don't have that section, and I don't have an objection to talking to HRTPC if they want to include that and or looking at including it in the CTP, either in addition or instead. Chris, I'd welcome you to send us a little memo if you want, with those 2 paragraphs drafted up, and we can take a look at it.
Yeah, I mean, the reason why I'm bringing it up is I work with a lot of engineers, and often things aren't triggered unless there's been something happens there. And oftentimes things happen, but there isn't a police report, there isn't a direct injury, or someone doesn't report something.
Yeah.
And then we just have no record of it. And then when it starts to become a problem, there's this time when you're trying to build up data to be able to have something be warranted, a special crosswalk or something like that. So if there's kind of more of a triggers put in place in the county, for example, that when there was some kind of accident, even if there wasn't an injury, there's some kind of trackable data point that's produced, those kinds of things. So yeah, I'd love to put some, a few sentences together for you just to see if it's something you guys would consider including, because and it's obviously aspirational. I mean, we can't force these things to happen, but we could at least say, we're looking to have a way to collect data that doesn't, that we don't lose information as a result of police reports not getting done, for example, or if there isn't any enforcement of these passing rules that they're and education and things like that, then there's that whole other piece. But I mean, at least we could start with the legal piece, because that's really how police think, and that's how engineers have to act. So, okay, I'll put something together and send it your way.
Thank you for that. And I can't promise it'll get into every one of these plans, but we'll at least look at it.
Yeah,
and I do want to say to Torina, in response to what you're saying, just for our notes, it does sound to me like, Chris, another thing you're suggesting is that the mapping and reporting that we're doing on collisions from Switter's data, in your opinion at least, may represent an undercount, because even perhaps more than with an auto collision, there's some pressure or precedent for things not getting reported. So we might just want to put a note on the maps and in the analysis that there's some reason to believe that this is an undercount.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'm hinting at that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
And just in response, so the framework for the low stress network is in the bike ped plan. So I think any thoughts about that, legal or otherwise, would probably be contained there. So we should probably go and look and see what is in there, because there's a whole lot of thought put into the LTS through the bike ped plan. So I think we should go back and look at that. But on the enforcement, so Chris, we've had a history of trying to include reporting on collisions as part of the action plan monitoring, and we've been very unlucky just because we're one agency dealing with 20 reporting jurisdictions with 20 reporting police and sheriffs. So I think what we need there is what would need to change at the local agencies to get their public safety to start doing this. As transportation agency, without any without any authority there, I would say we would need help from you guys to shape a policy or something related to that enforcement, just because it's outside of our jurisdiction and is in your 20 jurisdictions.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is in San Francisco. One time I was pushed off the road by a car. I wasn't hurt. No one was hurt, but they have a small piece of paper that the police will hand out to both people who are involved, and it basically is an exchange of information, and then that piece of paper is tracked through the police department, and so there's technically a police report. So if there's some kind of expectation that was set that police would go through this process of creating a very simple police report with the basics of the information and an exchange of information, then if someone, what often happens with bicycling accidents is afterwards, someone realizes they've been hurt and there's no police report. And then they have to go back and talk to insurance and they don't know who the person was. So with a bicycle accident, it's like, it's always good to try to exchange information because there could be injuries that come up, a day later when it finally sinks in what happened. So that's the kind of thing I'm thinking about, something that's more like a procedure thing that we look towards it and try to urge our member cities to create police reports for these non-injury altercations between a pedestrian and a car, or a pedestrian and a bike, or a bike and a car where there isn't an injury. So yeah, I get what you're saying, Matt. I mean, it's how do you control these things? But I think that when you start talking about this stuff, unless there's some discussion, even just a cursory discussion, just to start to get people thinking about it, it's never going to change. So I just think this would be a good environment to have a couple of sentences about that. Maybe even some of what you said, that it is difficult for the CCTA to be able to mandate any of this stuff, but now there's some frustrations about collection of data, and it could be some underreporting because of blah, 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 something like that. An asterisk. I don't know. Okay, thanks, David.
And I think that's great. We can come up with that language, and maybe speaking for Colin, if we do have any local examples or even the San Francisco example, maybe this venue, CBPAC, would be a good place to share that, just to get the word out so people know we've got this action in the action plan. How can we implement it locally? So if we've got someone that's doing it, maybe we can share that information.
Okay, I'll see what I can find out.
Okay.
All right, if there are no other questions or comments from committee members, I would like to take any questions or comments from members of the public. If you have any members of the public, if you have questions, comments, please raise your hand. All right, seeing no hands up. Just want to make sure here. All right, and I just want to confirm, Jackie, Colin, it's just an informational item, correct?
That is correct.
All right. All right, with that, we'll thank you. With that, we'll move on to item 4B, which is
for your time. Bye-bye.
Oh, sorry, my apologies. Let me apologize real quick. Yeah, thank you, Placework staff. David, thanks for the presentation and for answering questions that committee members had.
Right. Bye-bye.
All right, we'll move on to item 4B, which is a review of complete streets checklist. We have 5 of them on the agenda today. Each project sponsor has 5 to 10 minutes to present their project and answer any questions that come up from committee members. So the first project on the list here is from the East Bay Regional Park District, Martinez Intermodal Station. My apologies here. Crockett Bay Trail Gap Closure Project. Ooh, that was a long one here. So I think, is that Sean? Is that going to be, or Vice Chair Dugan? Is that yours or?
No, we have Katie Hornbeck here, our grants manager at the Park District, to present that item.
All right, Katie, I'll turn it over to you.
Great. I'll go ahead and get my screen sharing here. All right, can everyone see that? See this? Okay, great.
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. All right, well, like Sean said, my name is Katie Hornbeck. I'm the grants manager with East Bay Regional Park District, presenting on the Martinez Intermodal Station to Crockett Bay Trail Gap Closure. Yes, a little bit of a mouthful. And luckily Sean is here as well because he knows a lot about this project, much more than I do. So hopefully between the two of us, we'll be able to answer any questions folks may have. So today I'm going to briefly go over the project, the location, a few photos of its current conditions, and then go over the complete streets checklist. So to begin, so this project, the Martinez Intermodal Station, Crockett Bay Trail Gap Closure Project, sometimes also just referred to as the Martinez SF Bay Trail, will close a 0.5 mile gap in the 23-mile Carquinez Strait Scenic Loop Trail and the 500-mile San Francisco Bay Trail. The project will construct a shared use path along an agreed upon easement in Union Pacific Railroad right-of-way between Nedgedly Staging Area in the Park District's Carquinez Regional Shoreline and Barralesa Street in the city of Martinez. As people travel along the new path eastbound into Martinez, crossing improvements at the Barralesa Street will connect them to an existing pedestrian path leading directly to the Martinez Intermodal Station and downtown Martinez. From here, they can connect to transit at the Martinez Intermodal Station to take regional trips, continue east on the San Francisco Bay Trail, or access key destinations in Martinez. So this project has been a longstanding priority for the Park District and aligns with community identified needs in the 2020 Downtown Martinez Community-Based Transportation Plan. The gap closure projects will make multimodal work and recreation trip options safer and convenient between Martinez and Crockett, and is also located within an MTC equity priority area. Right now, the only alternative active transportation route between Martinez and Crockett requires people to bike on a high traffic stress road with a history of dangerous collisions. So this project will connect people to employment centers and recreational opportunities around the Carquinez Strait and throughout the greater Bay Area. And upon completion, there will be a continuous active transportation connection along the Bay Trail westward into Port Costa, Crockett, Benicia, Vallejo, and over 10,000 acres of parks and open space in Contra Costa County. A few photos of current site conditions. So this is an aerial photo of where the project would start. This is Barralesa, and these are the crossing I referred to earlier. I'm not sure if you can see my mouse, I apologize. So starting over here, kind of on the left side of the street, the trail would move west. Next slide. This is on the ground, basically where this aerial, the previous photo was, and the trail would move parallel to the train tracks. And then another aerial, again, the trail following the railroad, and eventually would cut over and head to Nedgedly Staging Area. All right, for the complete streets checklist, I apologize, I wasn't quite sure. I've never presented one of these before, so I'm not sure what the best format was. So I just threw together a few slides that covers responses to the checklist that I'll just briefly go through, and then I suppose if there's additional questions, like we could drill down a little bit more. But so for the first topic that's covering bicycle pedestrian transit planning, just wanted to emphasize that, again, that this project is in the Contra Costa County Countywide Bike and Pedestrian Plan. And it's also in the Downtown Martinez Community-Based Transportation Plan. And then as it's closing this a gap in the Bay Trail, it's part of the San Francisco Bay Trail Plan as well. It contains segments of the Regional Active Transportation Network? Yes, it does. This is a Class 1 shared use path comfortable for all ages and abilities. So for the third topic, safety and comfort. So there haven't been any recorded bike collisions in the immediate project area, but the trail doesn't exist yet in this location. So it's going to be creating area for users. So although there haven't been any collisions directly in the area, there have been collisions on alternate and the closest parallel roads. The Barralesa street crossing between the end of the Class 1 facility and the existing pedestrian path is the primary potential conflict point in the project area. So once people can safely transition to the new trail, they'll be able to travel without risk of conflict with a motorized vehicle until they reach the Nedgedly staging area. And then also just note that to limit potential conflict at the Barralesa street crossing, the existing railroad crossing will be upgraded to meet current CPUC standards and UPRR requirements. So this project is going to provide a low stress bikeway and fill the gap in the San Francisco Bay Trail. For the topic 4, transit coordination, there are no there are no transit facilities in the project area. Have all potentially affected transit agencies had the opportunity to review this? That question wasn't applicable to this project. Is there an MTC mobility hub in the project area? No. Yes, this project meets the professional design standards. This is a class 1 trail, which meets AAS HTO bike ped design guides. It's also going to be ADA accessible and meets the Caltrans MUTCD and the NACDO as well. This project is located, as I mentioned before, in a equity priority community. Specifically, the census tract is 3160. And then we're here today to present to the BPAC this checklist. And then this was the statement of compliance that we checked yes to. And that is it. I'm happy to answer questions best as possible. Thank you for your time. I'm going to stop sharing.
All right, thank you, Katie. Any committee members have any questions or comments? All right, don't see any hands up. So actually first, any members of the public have any questions or comments?
Chair Sarmiento, I did see, Member Weeks, did you take your hand down? I thought I saw your.
Okay, I missed that.
Yeah, I did have it up. I just was changed to the public, so I thought I couldn't talk during that. Can I go ahead?
Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, thank you, Katie. Really excited to see this. It's funny. I used to be on the Caltrain Bicycle Advisory Committee for a good 10 years or so, and we tried very hard to get trails parallel to rail lines for a long, long time. So I'm excited to see that you're looking at the possibility of doing that. It looks like that from the pictures. If that's so, awesome. And I was just curious if there's any discussion of what kind of barrier you're going to have between the trail and the freight and Amtrak lines that are right there. And then I was interested in the going up the hill to the staging area, if that incline is going to have those kind of landing areas for wheelchairs to be able to navigate up that hill for pedestrians. But first, my question is, and it's also congratulations and thank you for doing this. I think that when we look at putting these trails along rail corridors, I think that we'll see that places like Oregon have done this for years, and we've just been reluctant to do it in the Bay Area. So I'm excited to see this. And you mentioned that there wasn't any talk with other transit agencies. I'm just curious if you did talk to Amtrak about this.
Thanks for your question. I'm actually going to turn this over to Sean Dugan. So he's been the lead on this project since the beginning. So he's much more of an expert than I am. So.
Yeah, thanks for the question. So I'll start with your last one before, since that one's the most recent one. We are dealing primarily with Union Pacific Railroad, who, nothing will happen unless they're okay with it. And Amtrak, we haven't spoken with Amtrak in particular, frankly, because we're so busy with UP trying to meet their requirements, but because they are basically a tenant on UP's infrastructure, the main concerns here for UP are minimizing the amount of space we take up on their property. So it will need to be as far away from the tracks as possible. And the other is the improvements to that crossing, the at-grade crossing, which I don't think there are any missing elements to the best pedestrian bicycle crossing that you would ever find in the nation. They're asking for it all. So, and that will probably happen first, for the record. So that we've been dealing mostly with Union Pacific, and we're doing our best to minimize the slope up on the upslope. And we may need to have some resting areas and some platforms for that, because it is kind of a steep incline there, and the property, of course, is constrained, trying to dip it into between a creek and the Union Pacific Railroad tracks. And I believe you had a third question, which I don't recall.
Oh, no, that was primary. I was just touching back at the first question again. I'm just, the only piece you left out was if was there a barrier you're proposing between that trail and the train right of way? I know that some places are totally fine with a cyclone fence, and some places I've seen, looks like a bomb shelter wall. So, I mean, I know, somewhere between those two, I'm guessing you're looking for.
Specifically, they're asking for an 8-foot tall expanded metal no climb fence in this location, but we're going to have to really work with UP and Kinder Morgan, because there's a gas line right under here, as to what barrier can be put there, and how far we could actually get it away from the trail. There's also some wetlands along the tracks, so there'll be possibly wetlands as a barrier and then a fence, but we'll see. So, but yeah, they're pretty particular and clear on what they want there. And but at the crossing, it'll be a lower fence, so that visibility is better, so for the trail users and those crossing.
Oh, thanks, Sean. That was great. Appreciate it.
And I just want to make one comment, and this is for Katie's reference. I'm sure Vice Chair Dugan's aware of this. The county, we're in the process of developing a Carquinez Strait Scenic Loop Trail gap closure study, which would studies existing gaps between Crockett and Martinez. And this project is included or discussed as part of that study. So Katie, maybe in the future, if you want to, you had a list of plans that this project's included in, yeah, you can include that, the county's Carquinez Strait Scenic Loop Trail gap closure study as well. All right, if no other questions on this project, we could, any final questions, comments? If not, we can move on to the second project on the list, which is City of El Cerrito, Richmond Street. Sorry, this one's a long one as well. Richmond Street Complete Streets Improvement Project. And will this be by Richmond, El Cerrito, or El Cerrito staff, or?
I will be presenting it, and yes, it is a mouthful.
Okay, well, Fair and Pierce staff, so.
Correct, yes, Fair and Pierce.
Ken. Thank you, Ken.
Can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Great. Well, good afternoon, everybody. I am Ken Durr. I am an engineer planner from Fair and Pierce, and I'm here on behalf of Yvette Ortiz and the City of El Cerrito to introduce the Richmond Street Complete Streets Improvement Project, along with its context, how it'll meet regional goals, along with some design details and some of its expected benefits to the community. Let's see here. So to provide an introduction, Richmond Street is the only continuous north-south arterial within the city of El Cerrito, connecting the Del Norte BART station to the north to the Plaza BART station to the south, and future transit-oriented development at both of these locations. This project will facilitate safe and accessible travel for all travelers between these two anchor points at both ends of the corridor, as well as an EPC highlighted in yellow, as you can see on the north end, various schools and other destinations along this corridor on the map, which runs parallel to the Ohlone Greenway and the San Pablo Avenue PDA. Now, these proposed improvements are part of community-based plans, which include the city's San Pablo Avenue specific plan, the active transportation plan, and of course, the county's CBPP. Elements of this project include proven pedestrian safety countermeasures, which include the installation of high-vis crosswalks, roadway lighting, RRFBs, and daylighting. And these are methods drawn from the CCTA's Vision Zero toolbox. This project will also add traffic calming measures, which can include teardrop medians to provide some vehicular deflection and perhaps give the opportunity to develop some street identity and character through some decorative treatments within these teardrop medians. Also included in this project is the installation of ADA curb ramps at most intersections along this corridor, as well as the reconstruction of sidewalk sections that have been damaged by street trees. Similarly, when it comes to street trees, it's a sort of a beautification project that kind of combines climate resiliency efforts for new infill street trees that will not only provide safety and shade for pedestrians, but also help with the city's urban forestry goals. And finally, there's a pavement rehab element to this project, which along with it will also include the installation of enhanced safety signing, as well as green sharrow markings on the roadway to really enhance the existing Class 3 bike facility on the corridor. Really, all of these improvements are intended to increase safety and eliminate pedestrian vehicle injury collisions along Richmond Street. Between the 5-year period from 2015 and 2019, there were about 10 collisions along this corridor, including 2 ped auto injury collisions, specifically at the intersection of Richmond and Gladys, which is shown on the bottom left of your screen. Now, the city has installed some safety countermeasures at this intersection, which you can see here, but they feel more robust improvements are needed because the volumes of traffic along this section are expected to increase about 50%, from 6,000 today to about 9,000 in the future. Now, these selected countermeasures were identified using a systemic approach, which basically means that we're applying these enhancements to, consistently to all other stop-controlled intersections along Richmond Street that have similar geometry to this intersection at Gladys in order to maintain the expectations and that consistency with all travelers on the corridor. The current cost estimate for this project is just over $10 million, with local matching funds of about 28%, which includes the city's street sales tax and SB1 funding. Currently, the city is in the studies and concept development phase with about a 5-year timeline for completion of the project. You can see here various letters of support received for this project from stakeholders that include the city's chamber, Strollers and Rollers, the supervisor's office and local schools, BART. This really demonstrates that many community members have spoken to the importance of walking improvements on Richmond Street over the last decade during multiple instances of public engagement. When it comes to, for example, the city's ATP in 2016, the BCAP project, and really ongoing requests from residents and community members over time to really push for these changes. So with that, thank you so much for your time. You can find Yvette Ortiz's contact information here if you do have any in-depth questions, and I am also available to answer any questions that you might have right now. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ken. Does any committee members have any questions or comments for Ken for this project? Please raise your hand. All right, don't see any hands up. Any members of the public have any questions or comments for Ken? Also not seeing any hands up. So yeah, thank you for the presentation, Ken.
Thanks, everybody.
Yep. We'll move on to item 3. And I guess I have a question for Antioch staff, or maybe for Colin. Should they just do, because I see the next 2 items are Antioch projects, should they just go through both projects and then answer questions at the end?
Yes, please. I do want to note that the city does not think that a complete streets checklist may be required for the bike garden project, which is item number B4. But regardless, the city is here in attendance to present first the L Street Pathway to Transit project, and then secondly, the bike garden. The first project will be presented by, I believe, John Samuelson, and I think the second project, the bike garden, will be presented by the Brad Helfenberger, who's the director of Parks and Recreation. But first, we have the director of Public Works, John Samuelson. Thanks.
Actually, not to correct Colin, but Scott Bunting, our project manager, will be doing the presentation on L Street, followed by Brad Helfenberger on the bicycle garden, and I am here to assist and fill in as necessary. So thank you. I'll turn it over to Scott.
There we go. Hey, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Scott Bunting. I am with the City of Antioch. I'm a project manager in the Capital Improvements Department. I'm very happy to talk to you a little bit today about the L Street Path to Transit project. This project is located on L Street. It is directly north of Highway 4. It will go from the freeway down to the marina. That would be the complete project. We are currently under design of the first phase of work, which will be to the northern and southern ends of the project. The work associated with this grant goes from basically Sycamore Avenue to, from Sycamore Avenue to approximately 9th Street. This section of roadway is a pathway to the Antioch High School from the freeway, as well as the Contra Costa County Fairgrounds, the Antioch Police Department, the Antioch Marina, and most of the downtown facilities. Along this roadway, there are limited bicycle lanes, as well as sections of sidewalk that are missing, and other improvements for pedestrian and bicycle safety that are in need of improvements. This particular project will do that. There'll be some timing done on some signals to make traffic flow a little bit better. The installation of a new Class 2 bike lane throughout the entire project. We will be installing roughly about a half mile of new sidewalk directly adjacent to the Contra Costa Fairgrounds. And a number of these other multimodal facilities will be put in place. Also, the city is in discussions with Tri-Delta Transit. It's a very heavily traveled bus route, trying to get the bus a little bit better in coordination with some of the facilities that we're going to be putting in. All in all, it's a project the city's been working on for a number of years. I have the MTC checklist. Would be more than welcome to go through any of these items that you guys might have any questions on. But all in all, we are looking to really increase transit in this area, pedestrians, bicycles. There is a lot of pedestrians in this area, and this is a very needed and welcome project here in the city. Like I said, if you have any questions particular to the checklist for the project, I'd be glad to answer them.
All right, thank you, Scott. Maybe we'll just take questions now because on this project here. Does any committee members have any questions or comments for Scott for this project? All right, seeing no hands up, move over to the members of the public if they have any questions or comments on this item. All right, don't see any hands up. So thank you, Scott, for that presentation. And we will move on to the fourth project, which is also from Antioch. It's the bicycle garden. So I'll turn it over to Brad to present.
Thank you, Robert. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Brad Helfenberger. I am the Director of Parks and Recreation for the City of Antioch. And today I'm going to be presenting on the bicycle garden. So give me a second to share my screen. So it's been a while since I've done a Zoom presentation. All right. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
All right. So here's some conceptual photos of the bicycle garden. And actually, real quick, I'm going to switch over to a video. All right, so this is a conceptual video that was actually developed by CCTA. The City of Antioch is in partnership with the Contra Costa Transportation Authority and the Street Smart's Diablo Safe Routes to School program. We are developing a state-of-the-art bicycle garden in Antioch. The bicycle garden will be a permanent hands-on bicycle training facility fully contained within an existing Antioch park. Designed like a miniature streetscape, the garden will provide a safe place for youth and adults to ride bikes and learn the rules of the road. The park will consist of small roads that weave in and around landscaped areas with smaller scaled versions of real-life traffic features, including parked cars, signals, traffic signs, road markings, bus stops, bike lanes, train tracks, and more. This video depicts a Cadillac version of what this project can be. And this is obviously a conceptual rendering. Formal plans have not yet been drafted, but this is just a vision of what the project could look like. So I'm going to pause it there. And we'll go back to the presentation. So just to give you a brief review of the progress that we've made so far, CCTA originally came up with this concept and they presented it to the Antioch City Council back in May of 2021. City of Antioch is very excited about moving forward to this project, and so they directed us to form an ad hoc committee to explore the concept and conduct some community engagement, and also ultimately to select a preferred location for the site. And so that was conducted in summer to fall of 2021. And I'll talk a little bit more about some of the community engagement that we underwent during that process. The ad hoc committee completed their work and presented to the Parks and Recreation Commission in November of 2021. And their job was to help the commission narrow the possibilities of sites down to 3. And then the Parks and Recreation Commission then presented that to the City Council in April of 2022. And the Antioch City Council ultimately selected Pruitt Park as the preferred location, which is what we're looking at now. And they also have allocated $550,000 in local funds for development and for design of the project. So to go back a little bit to the community engagement process, we conducted an online survey of what people would like to see with the project. We had over 140 respondents. We also posted signs in all of the parks that were under consideration. We reached out to community partners. We did a social media campaign. We engaged our existing participants in the Parks and Recreation programs, utilized local blog and media, websites, obviously. And we also hosted 3 virtual public workshops where we invited members of the public to come and provide live feedback on the project. We also did some live polling during those workshops. And by the way, the workshops are all available for everyone to view on the city's website if you'd like to go back and do that. So here is the site where ultimately the bicycle garden is scheduled to be located. This is Pruitt Community Park. It's a 99-acre park that has a lot of amenities already, but as you can see, also has a lot of opportunity for development. So currently the site has a community center and library, a 5-acre water park. There's an all-inclusive playground, picnic areas, a skate park, and some and a large parking lot which can accommodate more visitors to the site. So the area circled in red is where we're proposing to place the site. So as you can see, even though there's a lot going on at the park, there's still also a lot of opportunity for development. So given that this is already a community gathering space, it's an ideal location for this amenity. Here's a street view of the same location where it's going to be located. So you can see a nice, relatively flat space just in front of this hill here in an undeveloped field. So where we're at in the process now, we're currently developing an MOU with CCTA. CCTA is going to be the lead agency on this project. And then from there, we're going to go into the design phase. We're going to engage the public during that process once again, come up with a cost estimate, and then part of this process, identifying local funds, possible grant procurement, and then ultimately construction. And with that, before I end my presentation, I just want to give a special thank you to all of the staff at CCTA, in particular, Kirsten Riker. She's been absolutely instrumental in helping the development of this project along, and we couldn't have come this far without our wonderful partners at CCTA. And with that, I'll open it up to questions.
Sorry, I had to mute myself there. Thank you for that presentation, Brad. Take comments first from committee members, then I'll move over to members of the public. So I see committee member Olson.
Yeah, hi. Great presentation, Brad, and looks like you're going to have an excellent park. Thank you. The park is going to have a border parallel to the McCullamy Aqueduct bicycle path and pedestrian path. Are you thinking about having a connection midway along the length of the bicycle park over to the bicycle path, rather than requiring people from the trail to go all the way around into the parking lot and then enter there from Pruitt Park? Just a thought.
Yes, that is a possibility that we are considering, given that there's some easements involved there with East Bay Mud. That's something that we'll have to navigate. But yes, that seems a very logical connection point for this project.
Thank you.
All right, any other committee member comments? All right, seeing no hands up, I'll move to public comment. And the first hand I saw was from Robert Prince. Robert, go ahead and speak.
Hey, thank you, Robert. This is also Robert, the former education director with Bike East Bay, now advocacy director. I was responsible for managing Bike East Bay's free education program over the last 10 years, and I've been providing input on the bike park concept for the last number of years. One of the ways that we do our classes, in addition to the great work that's being done by Safe Routes to Schools, is actually very site specific. We try to bring the content to the people as opposed to vice versa. So when this concept came up, I had suggested either in addition or as an alternative to actually utilize smaller scale installations at school playgrounds or other local parks that would be closer in proximity to where people are living and make it easier for them to get to those sites. I still have some examples from other regions I'd be happy to share, but I think that will continue to be a need that I would like to see fulfilled even if this bike park moves forward. I'd also like to note that our program is largely adult education and family education centered, so as not to overlap with the Safe Routes to School program, but also because there is a lot of need. I see there's being an opportunity to engage this park, not just for youth education, but for adult learn to ride needs and other types of adult and family education. But there's currently no funding in the county that's dedicated for these needs. And I've been trying to raise awareness of that for many years. And so that's a continuing need that I would like to see be looked into parallel to this park development, but that will exist with or without it. We have a very successful adult bike education program funded by the Alameda County Transportation Commission. We have a lot of great instructors who are ready to bring the same thing to Contra Costa County, but right now the way our program is structured is just very piecemeal and not super sustainable. So please make sure you're considering the programming needs in addition to the infrastructure. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Robert. The next hand I see up is Eric Owens. Oh, Eric, go ahead.
Hello, this is Eric Owens. I am a member of Bike Concord. Yeah, it's as a standalone project, it seems great, but how am I going to ride my bike safely to and from this bike area would be the biggest questions. There's those two main arterials running there, and are there protected bike lanes on either of those streets? And or is there any plan to actually put protected bikeways to get you in and out of this park from whatever direction you decide to get there?
Sure. So as was mentioned earlier, the park is adjacent to the McCollum Trail. And in addition, there's also a city-owned trail that's to the rear of the park. And so many of those trails all connect to multiple residential areas. And so it will be accessible to members of the community from, via bike. They'll be able to ride their bike to the park to access the feature.
Yes, but there are major arterials there, Deer Valley or Deer Creek, as well as the other one, which are extremely unbike friendly. Is there any consideration to put in better bike facilities on those streets? Or am I wrong that those are actually, are there protected bikeways on those streets, and are there any plan to put them on there?
If there are plans to improve those, and John, feel free to step in, they're not included as part of this project.
Deer Valley Road has protected bike lanes. Hillcrest, which is also nearby, has protected bike lanes. Lone Tree Way does not. It has sharrows on it at this time, but that is the roadway, as Brett has mentioned, that has that parallel bike route that can be used instead of being on Lone Tree Way if you are uncomfortable with the sharrows.
All right, any other questions, comments? I see committee member Olson.
I'd like to reply to Mr. Samuelson about the sharrows on Lone Tree Way. Every rational adult, every rational person does not ride their bicycle in a traffic lane on a 45-mile-an-hour street. Those sharrows, people with whom I have spoke have indicated that when we talked about these sharrows, they said, oh, I thought that was where a bicyclist got run over, rather than an indication to the bicyclist that this is where he should ride. Just saying.
All right, any other final questions or comments for Brad or Antioch staff? Committee member Weeks?
I just wanted to see if there's a bathroom, water, that kind of stuff in this plan. Is there a restroom facility with water for people who are at this park?
So there are currently restroom facilities at the adjacent community center, which is open 7 days a week and is open most evenings, depending on what's going on at the community center. It's open most evenings until well past when the bicycle garden would be utilized. So that facility is available.
Okay, but that you would have to go to the other building. There's none as part of the project. There's no water in the park and there's no bathroom in the park. It's in the community center nearby, near the parking lot. Is that right?
Currently, yes, that's how it's configured. But there is a possibility that we would add a restroom facility or other amenities to the project, but that has not yet been finalized.
Okay, thanks for clarifying.
If no other questions or comments for this item, we'll move on to the last item. Thank you, Brad, Scott, and John for your presentations. We'll move on to the final item, which is Town of Moraga, the Moraga Road and Canyon Road Complete Streets Project. And let me see what I saw. Yeah, it was Sean Knapp from Town of Moraga is going to present. Oh, and Brett, I guess Brett Swain. Sorry, did not see you there. So, I guess Brett, you will be presenting?
I'm here. Yeah, I'm not sure if Sean's on. He's supposed to be on, but I'm going to be presenting for him today.
Okay.
So let me go ahead and share my screen. Okay, thank you, everyone. I'm here to present on the Moraga Road and Canyon Road Complete Streets Improvements, which will be basically between St. Mary's and Sanders Drive. So the location will be basically from Sanders at one end through the PDA of town over to St. Mary's. Now, this is a major arterial for our town. It's the main thoroughfare through our town. It is an interregional or regional route of significance. It depends upon which action plan you look at. The route is through our priority development area, and it does have high density housing on it, particularly over towards the St. Mary's side. It does have a school connection to it for the middle school out at near the Canyon Road Bridge, Camino Pablo end. And then it does connect to the community canyon through Canyon Road into areas like Valle Vista up for the parks up there. And it connects to the Lafayette Trail at both ends, the Lafayette Moraga Trail, because that comes back across the bridge and then that comes through Commons Park. So there's a lot of attractors in this area for people to be moving around. This is one of the gaps in the city where the improvements are old, they need to be updated. We don't have the kind of class 2 that we have elsewhere. We have gaps in sidewalk, we have crosswalk improvements that need to be done, things of that nature to help improve pedestrian access from the residential areas down to the commercial areas, and also to improve the bike throughput along this way to get out to the either to get to the schools or to get out to Valle Vista or Commons Park, which is at the other end. As you see from the bicycle collision heat map, which I did pull up, this section of town is particularly problematic for bicycle collisions. That area around Commons Park is a strong attractor for people locally There's a lot of events going on at Commons Park. It's also where the Lafayette Moraga Trail comes through. And then the area out towards the end of this section is also high in incidents of accidents. So this we pulled up from the Countywide Bicycle Ped Plan. This is, as I said, part of our priority development area. So it is going to be in our housing element and our upcoming general plan. It has been before, as where we want to put high density housing. It's where the primary commercial district in the city exists. It's also where there's a lot of amenities that draw the public in. It is also part of the active transport network here. As you can see, Moraga Road is. And a lot of bicyclists regularly use it. Unfortunately, I missed a picture where we had a whole bunch of bicyclists riding north on Moraga Road the other day there. It is also part of our transit route. There are 3 bus stops along there. And the ones that we're looking to improve as part of this project are 1338 and 1339, which are right now, they're just signs. So the problem, as I put some pictures to show you, we get a number of complaints from pedestrians and from bicyclists about the roughness and condition of the pavement, the speed of traffic traveling next to them. These do not have buffered class 2. They have older class 2. Some of the markings or the striping is missing in portions of that. Some segments are actually kind of narrow in there. So there are a number of complaints we get on that activities. There's gaps in the sidewalk where we get people walking out of pavement to go around the gaps. Some of them are along the hillsides and need to be adjusted. And then we have some old uncovered bus stops there. They don't get a lot of demand, probably because they are in an awkward spot and they need to be improved to make it more amenable to transit. So our solution has been to modify this. This is a section south of the portion we've done. So this heads out towards the bridge crossing Canyon Road, to have the buffered class 2 bike lanes, to have the ladder crosswalks installed. Improvements, particularly around Moraga Way and Moraga Road, need to be taken care of. You know, there's sidewalk gap closures we talked about. This is a picture on the bottom you see of Moraga Way heading into Moraga Road. So this whole section of Moraga Road is a gap where we have improvements on all sides of it. We have a class 1 bike lane on the north side. We have class 2 buffered on the south side, and then Moraga Way has class 2 buffered going out there. So it's filling in that gap, as you can see. There's also some flashing beacons and other improvements that have been identified in the LRSP. And then there's other amenities that need to be taken care of, some pedestrian refuge in some areas to help shorten the distances and things of that nature. Some street trees. It is a totally open area, so it has no street, there's no canopy cover out there. So it's pretty hot on that sidewalk sometimes. This provides you a plan view of the proposed improvements along the road. You can see where we have some gap closure. This yellow portion here is where you saw the picture of the guy walking out in the street. There's a number of those you see along here where there's just missing sidewalk. And it wasn't developed in the past. It has to be taken care of. We're also looking at narrowing some of these lanes, and I'll show you that in a minute. Right now, we do get a number of complaints about people speeding through here. I can go out there and watch the signs, which I did do, and you can see that people are doing over the 35-mile-an-hour limit. They're usually doing around 45, things like that in the midday when there's not a lot of traffic out here. So narrowing the lanes should help do that, and it provides the buffer for the bicyclist out here. This is the midsection around Moraga Road. Try and get all the ladder crosswalks and the higher safety improvements in here. We're going to try and get a little bit of a bulb out on this side to help with this crossing. Because this is actually where Safeway is, and a number of the facilities are up in this northwest corner of this intersection. So this is a big attractor in the city. And then this would be the south section here. Portions of Sander have been improved, as you can see from this. At Country Club, that's where the class 2 buffered lanes start and head out to the south towards Valle Vista and the Lafayette Moraga Trail crossing at the bridge. But there's a laddered crosswalk that we need to look at putting in, and flashing signs, improvements to the existing media, some things like that. So this gives you a cross-section conceptual view of what we're talking about doing. Right now, some of the lanes are 11 to 15 feet on the outside. So we're going to take some of that and put in class 2 with buffering. Right now, we have portions that are class 2. Some places we don't. Sometimes it's dirt. We're going to put in new bus shelters and then put in things like ladder crosswalks, better signage, flashing beacons, stuff of that nature that are recommended in the LRSP to help reduce the traffic, help improve the aesthetic. We'll be planting street trees and make this a much more amenable environment, consistent with what you see on both ends of it, up on the north end by Commons Park and down by the south end from Sanders South to the bridge. This will make it a more friendly environment for people to both travel by pedestrian mode locally and for bicyclists who come through there pretty frequently, headed out towards Camino Pablo or out to Valle Vista and out to the parks, East Bay Park system. So with that, I want to thank you. If you have any questions, please feel free.
Okay, thank you for that presentation, Brett. Any committee members have any questions or comments for Brett or Sean? Committee member Weeks.
All right, I seem to be asking questions on everything. I apologize. I bike through this area all the time. I'm just curious if I see you're putting some great work into the crossing where School Street goes into the park. Do you know, are there plans for School Street for any kind of in-road bike facilities at some point, or is that going to be?
So there is a class 1 concrete trail that goes through the section to connect to the street. That's private land over there. So when they develop the property, they would be developing it. But it's really kind of tied into the land developer who owns the land. They want to develop School Street to connect through to St. Mary's at some point. But if you've ridden that route, you know, once you get off of School Street and you get onto you have to cross first Moraga Way, which is a major intersection. People coming in from that end of Moraga Way are going at a pretty good tack. They don't pay great attention. I had to cross that the other day to take pictures for this. And you have to go back through the country club and stuff. So I do regularly get phone calls and complaints about the left turns out there and the traffic in the country club and people not paying attention to stop signs and things of that nature. So it's a circuitous route to follow through the back end through the country club and come all the way back around to get back to the bridge. So what I do see is a lot more of the bicyclists, particularly the regional bicyclists who are heading through town towards Valle Vista, they just go right down Moraga Road. That's why I was trying to get the picture the other day. There was a whole group of them, but they were moving faster than I could walk over and get a picture.
Yep, that's the best way to get in. And then you stop at the brewery right there on your way back out.
And the brewery's right there. So we have a bunch of attractors right there in our PDA that draw people in. There's a bunch of restaurants, there's the Safeway, there's the brewery, there's, you know, the banks, everything's right there in that one center, that one hub. And we also have the bus stops. So improving transit along with improving bicycle and pedestrian access should feed into each other. Because right now we don't get much utilization of the transit, but it's not a very friendly place for people to go use transit. So we're trying to make it easier to get to use transit.
Right. No, that's great. I was just curious about the private trail that's the sidewalk through there. So that's basically whenever they develop that, they have the right to close that or not, or is that something?
Well, when they develop it, we're going to make them connect School Street. It's going to be part of the plans for the city to connect School Street right there at St. Mary's.
Yeah, that's great. It's good for people that live
in a road in there and stuff.
People that live in that side of Orinda often will use that to get to the trails. So it's a nice little connector, and it's not the main route. You're right. And what you're working on is the most important piece. So thank you for doing that.
Well, and at the end of that route too is Joaquin Moraga School. So it is a connection between the PDA, where we plan to have high density housing, and the middle school, which is down by the bridge. It's right next to the bridge. So connecting that route helps children also get out to the school because it's within less than half a mile. So
yeah, great. Well, thanks for answering that. Appreciate it.
All right. Any other committee member comments? All right. Seeing none, I'll go to public comment, and saw Robert Prince's hand up first. Then I'll go to Eric Owens after.
Thanks again, Robert. Thanks for the presentation, Brett. This is Robert again with Bike East Bay. We've been hearing good things since the installation of the updates on Canyon Road and on Moraga, so I'm glad to hear that work is continuing. I do have some questions, but this is the first I've seen on the schematics of the project about some of the intersection designs. Is this a good time to get in touch with staff to go over those in some more detail? or is there a later design iteration, which that would make more sense?
Well, we haven't really started the design at this point. We've laid out the conceptual design, so we need to go further. So it would be a good time in the near future to get with us. Obviously not immediately, because I'm going to have to drive into the office after this. So, but
yeah, no, I was going to put you on that kind of
timeline.
Okay, yeah. I'll get in touch, and then we can get back and forth about what the best opportunity for providing input is. But thank you.
Okay.
All right. Next, we'll move to Eric.
Hello, this is Eric Owens again. Blinking lights and trees really don't do anything to protect pedestrians and bicycles. Have you considered doing things like adding bollards to narrow the road and or doing raised crosswalks to decrease car speeds?
We haven't really looked at those. Particularly the raised crosswalks. I mean, this is the primary connector street through the city. So we would have to go to MOFD, the fire department, and talk to the police about those types of improvements. We've had raised crosswalks in other places. They do, as you know, any kind of elevated section of the pavement can be a problem for fire and safety to get across. In some cases, they don't like to travel at high speed across those, but it's worth looking at. I mean, like we said, we're in this phase of just right now, we're trying to figure out how to continue at least the class 2 buffer to deal with some of that and get the pavement issues resolved in the bike lanes and such. Was there
any other final questions for Brett here? Okay, seeing none, thank you for that presentation, Brett.
Okay.
And now we'll move on to item C, which is a discussion of updates on various ongoing projects. This item is going to be presented by Colin, or this update's going to be item presented by Colin. Sorry.
Thank you. So maybe we can make this be projects and programs, because Member Weeks has been kind enough to offer to lead a presentation to summarize current progress on the pilot program for micromobility in the city of San Ramon. And so we'll start with that item before item D.
Okay, thanks, Colin. I have a longer presentation, but I'm just going to jump into the middle of it since you just want an update here. So let me try to share my screen really fast. 1 second. Okay, can you guys see that? Okay, great. 1 second, let me navigate over there. Okay, so San Ramon has been involved in the first rollout in the corridor of Bird e-bikes and e-scooters, and we have a use agreement, which we've just finished working out with Bird. It's actually a license agreement, so it's a little bit different than just a plain old contract. We've decided to frame it in that way so that we are basically licensing them for access to our city to run their business. And so they're going to be in San Ramon providing e-bikes and e-scooters for the use of the general public in this area as a pilot program for 1 year. We're hoping to have it executed today. So we're down to the last little bits, just working on insurance, which is going to always be the most complicated part. But we're finishing that up. We are shooting for a soft launch, which is something that we've been trying to define exactly. But we just want to make it so that not every nest, which is basically the same thing as a pod that you'd have with car sharing, doesn't need to be marked on the ground before we actually do our launch. So, and we'll kind of have you could also call it a rolling launch, where you're basically the nests where the scooters and e-bikes are placed by the operator are in the app that people use to access these vehicles, but not actually physically present on the road yet, but they will be as we move forward with the launch. So the idea is to get the vehicles out quicker and get things moving forward. So we could launch as soon as next week if we get a signature today. So I'll make sure to let you guys know if that's actually happens, that we're just balancing on the fulcrum now, where we're just waiting for that signature. And what we're working on is creating an internal committee with representatives from each department to give input on nest locations and protocol. The police have asked for a clarification on how people should be operating these vehicles and where. And we're working with Bird to put into the programming for each vehicle our city parks. For one, most of our city parks do not allow bicycles. So the centers of the parks will be no ride, no park designation on the programming for the units. So as people come to the edge of the park, the nest areas will be designated on their app, and they'll be guided to those for storage of the vehicles and ending of their reservation. But there's some interest from the city to limit the use of e-mobility within parks that are part of these shared systems. So we're going to experiment with that. Again, this is a pilot, so our goal is to develop protocols for the corridors. So if we find that we need to allow access in the middle of the park at a lower speed, we'll experiment with that and come up with something that we can pass on to other cities in the corridor, like Danville, who are interested in rolling this kind of project out moving forward. And what I just have shown here is a picture of City Center, and where you see these kind of avocado green pins on the perimeter. Those are actually banks of bike racks. And these areas are where you're allowed to park scooters and e-bikes. And the red box is actually programmed into the app. So if someone tries to scoot into the middle of City Center, their dashboard will blink red and the vehicle will become inactive. So they'll actually have to roll it. So the Sunset Development, the owner of that property, has asked that that be programmed there. So we're also going to put on around the perimeter a lower speed zone or a slow go zone, which will make it so that they can't ride faster than 10 miles an hour right around the perimeter. So you can approach at a safe speed the place where you're going to leave your vehicle since there's so many pedestrians present. And then you'll be guided to places to be able to park those vehicles on the edges. So Sunset has met with us and is on board with this philosophy. And you'll see over here on the side is Annabelle Lake. And they've asked that we program a 10-mile-per-hour zone around the lake. So people could operate their vehicle to get to, there's some restaurants there. You could take a Bird scooter or e-bike to lock at this pin here, which is right next to the Roundhouse Cafe, and park there and end your reservation there. So we're starting to get into the weeds as far as programming zones. Something that this group might be interested in hearing is that Bird has been mandated by the city of San Francisco to map every street and designate the sidewalks be no-go zones. And that's a little different than what we've decided to do here. We have decided to allow our e-bikes and scooters on sidewalks. And it's the reason why is because we have some pretty busy arterials, which you can technically operate a bicycle in, and I do daily, but also there's sidewalks along the sides of these very busy arterials. It would be safer for our younger users or less experienced users to be able to navigate on. And those sidewalks, we allow bicycles on also in those environments. So it's a simpler message to say these vehicles should be operated exactly as a vehicle in the roadway, just like bicycles. So it's a pretty straightforward guidance. And we're giving away free helmets with every membership. So, and people can send away and have a helmet sent to their home if they want to get one for free also. They just pay for the shipping of the helmet. One of the things that Colin wanted me to mention today was our discussions with the East Bay Regional Parks and the Iron Horse Trail. And we've arrived at an agreement with them to, for now, not allow e-scooters on the trail. So they'll be programmed not to operate on the trail. But the e-bikes will be allowed to go on the trail as they are allowed on the trail. And e-scooters still are at the growing edge of access that East Bay Regional Parks is working on. And I heard that there's a meeting set up for the coming days to work out the details with Bird and CCTA on the project. So that doesn't mean it's going to happen overnight after this meeting. It's just those meetings are starting to happen. We are eager to allow people to use the scooters on the trail within the city of San Ramon for this pilot. We'd like to share the data with anybody that was interested in it and learn more about how we can operate safely and give access to the trail. But ongoing, for now, the scooters will not be allowed to be used on the trail, but they'll be allowed on city sidewalks for the time being. So you can actually use the city sidewalks to cross trail on rather than going onto the trail to cross the trail. So this is going to be a situation with city center on one side of the trail and a large amount of our residential on the other side of the trail. People are going to want to cross. So we're looking for ways to be able to navigate across, and we don't have that mid-trail now. We only have it at the intersections with city streets, so it's a little bit awkward. So that's something we'd really like to work out, at minimum, a way for people to get across the trail to move between neighborhoods. And in the long run, we hope maybe a pilot to look at access for e-scooters on the trail. And we would control that with these geo zones. So that's what I was talking about with the slow go zones where you can choose the speed, and a no-go zone where it just won't go. And this is the scooter that we're hoping to work on. It's the version 3 Bird scooter, and with the 35-mile range. And then this is the e-bike with the 56-mile range. So these will really come into their own once Dublin gets interested in these projects, because we'd really like to have access to BART at some point via the trail. So, but that's the future. That's not yet today. Today is the looking to launch the pilot in San Ramon. I know Pleasant Hill is also very far along, and they have put on hold their launch briefly, but I think they're also going to be doing a soft launch now. So hopefully we'll be launching at the same time and be able to share data. And moving forward, we'll get a pilot that we can learn enough from how to do the insurance and doing the agreement that cities along the corridor can just hop on and sign on to a broader regional agreement that's part of a mobility on demand system in the corridor. And just briefly mention the cost. We're going to be doing a project with 511 Contra Costa to have a reduced cost 3-month promotion. So normally people pay $1 to unlock them and pay a per minute fee. But if you can get monthly and weekly passes that do away with that unlock fee, and you just pay the price per minute. So what we're going to do is for 3 months, we'll pay the monthly membership fee for new members. So they'll just pay the price per minute. And then after 3 months, they could decide whether it was worth it for them to sign on for something longer or just do daily passes or whatever works out for them. Let me see. I talked mostly about this. Sean's on the call today, so he's sorry I gave your email out here by accident. Whoops, sorry. But anyways, Sean's working on it. He's running point within the parks. So if you have any further questions, maybe he's willing to give us an update, but I think that he told me already today what's going on. So it's that meeting that's coming up. There's no advocacy that's needed externally at this point. I think it's just something that the East Bay Regional Parks needs to chart their direction on. So they're working on that as we speak. We're starting to send emails out to retail locations, so the different shopping centers, to try to rationalize access to the shopping centers. We already did this for City Center, and we're hoping to do this at Crow Canyon Commons and other areas around here. And there's also letters going out to the people who live in the city through our newsletter that's going to be coming out soon, introducing people to Bird and letting them know what they're going to see out there. And let me see, we're working on the flyers. This is an example of one of the flyers that we're starting to put out at events. So the farmers markets and other various community events will have these flyers available. And the guy leading our charge is Robert Singleton. That's his email right there. Please reach out to him if you want to ask more questions of Bird. And that's my contact info. And if you have any questions, I'd be glad to give you any updates specific to what you guys want to see. Is there any questions?
I see Committee Member Pinkham's hand up. Bill?
Let me unmute. Yes, I like the fact that you're doing a fair amount of outreach. You may be aware, and if not, I should make you aware that in Richmond, Bolt Company started an electric bike share program, and it was not very successful, and partially because the company went out of business. I have a nice little free helmet they gave me, which is almost embarrassing now, but they just left us with a bunch of e-bikes in the stands, and that was it. Although I think they may be over some other company taking over. Are you familiar with the extent of well, Bird's solvency and how large a company it is? How many other cities have had projects with them?
Yeah, thanks, Bill. Yes, I'm aware of what happened to you guys out there. And that's something that's a common occurrence within the micromobility world, new technology, transportation world. A lot of companies are really interested in going public. And if they don't succeed, they vanish. So these guys already have gone public. I follow them pretty closely, just making sure that things are stable. They just had a little bit of a corporate shakeup. So, but it's actually a good thing within their organization. It sounds like to me. Even though I'd like to say I could read a crystal ball, I don't know what's going to happen with them. But they aren't on the same trajectory as a lot of the smaller companies that are just kind of puffing themselves up on paper to look good for the short run. They're in this for the long run and have launched programs throughout the Bay Area just very recently, Santa Rosa and San Jose and Fremont and Redwood City. They're growing a lot in the Bay Area and putting a lot of energy and resources in the corridor and are super interested in being part of this mobility on demand in our corridor specifically. So spanning the distance between Walnut Creek BART and Dublin BART is that's their prize. That's really what they'd like to be able to do. So
well, believe me, my fingers are tightly crossed for you guys. I hope it works out.
Yeah, and then the idea of this is it's a pilot again, so we can learn how to provide something to other cities who are interested in maybe trying this and filling this gap in their mobility on demand. It's not going to be for everybody. It's not going to, you're right, it's not going to solve everything. It might even make some things more complicated, like, for example, the trail right now. But I think that what we're going to learn from it is going to help everybody. And this new generation of mobility on demand allows you to program speeds and like set limitations about where these things can go. It basically throttles them from being put in these situations that will cause the high profile failures that we've seen throughout the last 5 years. Where you're finding, people dumping things in the, throwing something in the canal or something like that. These things continue to ping headquarters, and even the batteries are waterproof and continue to communicate even if they were dumped in water. Those kinds of things. Like Bird's learned a lot from things that Lime and other companies tried and unsuccessfully were able to do. So they're taking it to the next level, and I think that these vehicles are going to they'll bring up some new issues, but I think they'll also bring up a lot of new opportunities, especially since the state of California allows people who are 16 with a learner's permit to be able to operate scooters. I see every day There's people younger than that riding these e-scooters and not a lot of enforcement. These are going to be capped at 18 plus for now. And then once we sort out all the kinks in it in a year, we'll look at the possibility of opening it to 16 plus. But for now, it's just going to be 18 plus.
Just to know, I see Committee Member Riley and Committee Member Keeshan's hands up. Yeah, we are over, I guess, past the end point of this meeting, but yeah, I still want to take your questions, but please be mindful of the remaining time. But so first I go with Committee Member Riley.
Yeah, I just wanted to respond to what Bill was talking about with the downfall of Bolt. The city of Richmond has chosen a new provider. They are Leap Bikes, LEAP. Also, I think the parent company is called Charleston Mobility, but they're going to be Leap Bikes. Use a lot of the same infrastructure that was left by Bolt. The city is already working to get those back up and running, and we at 511 Contra Costa are going to be working with them to be able to provide similar incentives. So hopefully we're going to try to get some like free monthly rides and stuff for people using Leap Bikes in Richmond.
Thanks, Corey.
And then next, Committee Member Keeshan.
Yes, real quick, it would be interesting to hear, it's been a while, an update on the Iron Horse Trail in terms of, they were considering maybe creating 3 lanes, something that would accommodate maybe the e-bikes and maybe the e-scooters. I think this is kind of a canary in the mine shaft, right? That these kinds of technologies aren't going away. As a matter of fact, if you look at Amsterdam, they're becoming the dominant form of transportation. It would be interesting to hear, where we should be talking about this. I know this doesn't necessarily quite fit, but it's tangential to, I guess, other organizations.
Yeah, thanks, Bill. And Sean, do you want to comment on this? Or I mean, I could talk about it and imagine the future, but I think a little bit more pragmatically what's happening on the ground right now.
Yeah, well, I'll just say that the county completed the study along the Iron Horse Trail corridor, and I do believe it identified more likely areas that there could be increased capacity added to the Iron Horse Trail. As there is some concern about capacity on our end, and I'm managing those conversations as we speak. Just because of the increase in use that occurred, especially during the pandemic. But that seems to be tailing off a little bit. But what I would like to do is identify areas where that's possible. But it's an expensive endeavor, and it's not possible at every location along the Iron Horse Trail. And that's all I really know about that right now. I think that this pilot project is a great opportunity to determine where those hotspots may be and use the information, to sort of dispel any sort of anecdotal myths that may be going around, but also identify better ways that we can avoid issues with speed and or capacity.
And I just want to add, for Committee Member Keeshan, Vice Dugan mentioned the county had an Iron Horse Active Transportation Corridor study. Is that something you're aware of? And if not, I could, email or send you a link to that, to the study. It does.
I saw the study at the time. I just was wondering if there's any. Yeah, I mean, I think I need to get used to the pace of things, but it seems with all the conversations, I know that it's all about money, but it does seem like, if I can imagine a future, there's going to be some need for this to be addressed.
Understood. All
Thank
right.
you.
Yeah, you're welcome. I do see again, Committee Member Pinkham. Go ahead.
Yes, one other area that's really critical, especially to those of us in West County, also in the north, is the Bay Trail. Very major concern there. And I think what we need to do at some point is meld our experiences with ones you're having with or will have with Bird and the Bay Trail people. We've had in our Richmond bike ped, we've had Bruce Baird, who's sort of the king of track, as we call him, Trails for Richmond Action Committee, and he was one of the big men responsible for getting us more miles of Bay Trail than anybody else. Like brag. In any event, we all kind of recognize that possibility. We kicked around enforcement. That doesn't seem to be possible at this point, or desirable maybe. We put up some nice signs that say, please be kind to people on the trail. That's not a bad idea, I think. But I think we really need to get our, put our heads together and see if we can't work out something that is humane and nice and effective, and to be determined, I guess.
All right. Thank you, Bill. Vice Chair Dugan.
Thanks. Yeah, but as with the Iron Horse Trail, the Bay Trail is similar, is that not every jurisdiction that either operates or that the trail goes through is on the same page. And so it really is a regional issue that needs to be addressed, either NTC BATA with the San Francisco Bay Trail, and I'm glad we're discussing it here. But if we can all get on the same page along the corridor, I think that would go a long way.
Yep, it would.
All right.
Well,
go ahead.
I would just add, why not make it a priority? I mean, it seems to be one of the singular most things that could have the biggest impact to the most amount of people between these two trails. I mean, I can't imagine any. I know that there's traffic safety, and that's a priority as well. But creating the infrastructure, I think, would make the trail enjoyable, and it would reduce liability. It just seems like a no-brainer. Let's do it faster.
Yeah, I just thought I'd mention too that the Iron Horse Trail overcrossing at Bollinger is completely ready to rock. We're about to sign documents. Money's lined up, so construction should be beginning pretty quickly. So a couple years out for the thing to be done, but the road, I guess the road bed, for lack of a better word, the surface of that trail will accommodate. It's wide enough to be able to accommodate an area that's designated as a bike area or a vehicle area, and an area that's big enough for pets. So the thought has gone into that to make sure that this stays a pretty wide bridge and should be able to accommodate these future forms of transportation that will be navigating over it. And we've started to pull funds together for the Crow Canyon overcrossing too. So we're looking to have that also have the capabilities to do that. And there's Fostoria also right after that, which is going to need some work. And I've been talking with Danville a little bit about ways we could try to get money together to fix that. But here in San Ramon, we're working hard to try to prepare for this future of the trail and help all you guys get from point A to point Z anywhere along the trail in the long run. So we'll share with you everything we can learn from this pilot, and make sure to bring it to this committee. The good, the bad, and the ugly. I'm sure there will be lots of things we learn, and just keep in mind it is a pilot, so it's not going to fly right day one, but we'll definitely learn from all the missteps and be surprised by all the things that we didn't think of that worked out great. Make sure to share those things and make best practices. So thanks for letting me present a little bit.
All right, thank you, Committee Member Weeks. We'll move on in item C. I don't know, Colin, if you had any other ongoing projects or programs you wanted to discuss.
Well, I guess because we're remote, you can't throw tomatoes if if I tell you that the item that you requested in regards to cool pavement and extreme heat, I do have some slides put together to at least summarize it at a high level so we can start the conversation.
Okay.
Yep, there's a tomato. All right.
All right.
Thanks, Vice Chair.
I did not know that was an option. So
I didn't either. Now I do. That's great. Oh, that's good. All right, sharing screen. Has this come up before, Vice Chair Dugan, that you had it at the ready?
No, but there's a lot of options down there if you search everyone.
That's good stuff. All right, so I will keep this as brief as possible. I appreciate everyone's time. So this item was specifically requested by the CBPAC members, and so I'll just go to a high level. So especially because of how timely it is with the extreme heat that we've been experiencing in Contra Costa. So
Colin, if you don't mind, I'm sorry for the interruption. Could you like the screen share you have right now, it's showing, you know, your notes and things like that. So if you could flip it to the just showing the slides.
Yep, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah.
So in terms of the, you know, Labor Day weekend, which a lot of people remember, going here to the next slide, these are a lot of the headlines that went into that weekend and out of that weekend that resulted in quite a few closures in terms of parks and trails and open spaces and regional preserve areas. And there's some, you know, there's a lot of different issues being managed here, and I think Vice Chair Dugan can probably speak to this better than I can, in terms of, you know, fire risk and all the other risk management issues that resulted in a decision like this being made. But it does warrant recognizing the irony of closing trails when it's too hot, and then kind of forcing people back into their cars and vehicle miles traveled and that type of thing, when we have electric bicycles, we have electric scooters, and all kinds of other micro-mobility devices that you know, can be used during, you know, a heat resilience period. So there were a number of places in Contra Costa that were affected in terms of being closed, including trails. And so just summarizing at a high level, so why do we kind of care about this issue? So in terms of bicycling and pedestrians, as climate change continues to, you know, have impacts on Contra Costa, both more frequently and with greater intensity in terms of not just fire, but the heat issue, extreme heat. The temperatures are getting hotter, they're getting hotter for longer and for more, you know, number of days per year than was previously, you know, the record kind of thing. And so in terms of planning for the future in Contra Costa, in terms of getting more people to walk and bike and ride transit, you know, this is an important issue. And so today just wanted to introduce some topics. Obviously, trees and landscaping are long studied and long shown and proven to reduce ambient air temperatures. And so this is, you know, something this group may want to consider moving forward in terms of how projects are, you know, scoped and, you know, moving forward. And in terms of surface temperatures and the idea of cool pavement, there's quite a few examples and studies with a lot of really good work coming out of UCLA, some folks that I've coordinated with, that look into this issue in the LA area and Phoenix, and now Davis, California, which is a bike friendly platinum city in the US. And just want to quickly show this slide in terms of before and after, what this means in terms of allowing people to live, work, play, outside near their homes. The idea is to do different cool pavement treatments, and there's quite a few different ways of doing it. But you can see in this next slide from this example in Los Angeles that there's a huge difference in temperature from aged asphalt to black asphalt, darker asphalt, to kind of cooler pavement treatments. And in this example, it's important to note that if people want to walk their dogs, I actually have a greyhound, and greyhounds have very sensitive skin, and you actually do quite literally have to put booties on dogs just to be able to walk them in your own community on these hot days. So just showing this as an example in terms of just how critical this issue will become in the longer term as it relates to bike ped and those uses. Thanks.
All right, thank you for that presentation, Colin. Do any committee members have any comments or questions for Colin on this item? All right, don't see any. Thankfully, Colin, there's no tomatoes, no virtual tomatoes thrown after this presentation. So with that, I'm just want to confirm, Colin, do we have any other updates on various ongoing projects, or should we move to item D?
I'll just quickly verbally mention a couple, and Vice Chair Dugan is welcome to throw one more tomato. So just a quick update on the Countywide Vision Zero. The resolution 2140G, which was first adopted in September of 2021, that policy resolution has since been updated by the authority board on September 21st. And so this group, CBPAC, had seen an earlier, draft version of that policy, and that has since, been refined as it went through the committee process. So just want you to be aware of that. One of the more notable things that comes out of that policy resolution is defining a timeline to commit to achieving Vision Zero and eliminating fatalities and severe injuries in Contra Costa by December 31st of 2034. In particular, as it relates to SS4A, Safe Streets and Roads for All grant national competition. So there's that item to mention, and then another item to mention is the project list that you saw in your last meeting or the meeting before, was the Countywide Bike and Ped Plan project list update. So that has been, through this group, CBPAC, and into and through other committees and the board, and been, finalized, but it is something that continues to evolve as additional projects come about from the local level, so feel free to reach out. And then OBAG 3 was adopted, One Bay Area grant, about the active transportation and safety program. So that'll be going to MTC by the end of this week, Friday, September 30th. And so I'll keep you all updated in the coming months in terms of what that means for Contra Costa. And that's it for me.
All right, thank you, Colin. Any committee member comments or questions on any of the items that Colin just spoke about? All right, not seeing any hands and no one speaking up. We'll move on to item D, which is other business. Is there any other business that committee members would like to bring up? Feel free to speak up now or raise your hand. All right, seeing none, we'll move on to item E, which is upcoming subjects for discussion. Are there any upcoming topics that committee members would like to discuss at a future meeting? All right, I don't see any hands up and no one's speaking up. Well, I guess Colin will, if any committee members have any suggestions for items, we'll reach out to you via email or phone call. All right, with that, move on to the final item, item 5, which is adjournment. We will adjourn this meeting to the next regularly scheduled meeting, which would scheduled to take place on November 28th at 11 a.m. So by my clock here, the meeting is adjourned at 1:24 p.m. So thank you all.